We're here at Jeff Hacker's fiberglass farm. The farm belongs to his friend Nancy. There are 40 or 50 fiberglass and other materials, undiscovered classics. This is a Victress C3, which is the larger version of coupe that we built at Victress Manufacturing in the 1950s. We finished the smaller version of this in the fall of 54, and the larger version, this one, in early 1955. This car at one time was a beautiful finished car, nicknamed the Cat's Ass. So it's being rescued by Mike Puma, who will be putting the body on a Chevrolet Corvette C3 chassis. Let's see, it should be finished next week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We had built 3 different sizes of roadsters at Victress, and I wanted to do a coupe. And Doc Boysmith, my partner, had a friend, Bill Burke, whose business included making fiberglass copies of the 1947 or 8 Schiess Italia, and they sold these bodies as Allied or Atlas. Bill called Doc and said a customer had damaged his Allied, and can you repair it? And Doc said, sure, we'd be happy to, and we'll repair it for free if if your customer will let us take a fiberglass mold off of it. Now, we didn't want to reproduce another version of the Schiess Italia, but we wanted to create a car of a similar size, but totally different contours. And the quick way to do that would be to take a plaster cast off of this quick and dirty mold and to get us started. So Burke agreed, and we did the repair, made a quick throwaway fiberglass mold of the Allied, and then we cast a plaster reinforced with hemp inside this mold, and in anticipation of doing a larger version, we installed an expandable frame of my partner's design that would expand in length and width. We've placed it very carefully, located inside the plaster cast of the Schiess Italia, tied it in place, and then with hemp and plaster, and then when it was cured, rotated the whole thing over, set it up, this plaster on railroad ties at just the right height, automobile height, removed the fiberglass molds, and voila, we had a plaster Schiess Italia. Then we worked basically from sketches on a paper napkin, no formal drawings, and but knowing in our heads what we wanted to do, we started adding and subtracting plaster to create the small version of the car you see here. The Schiess Italia had pretty much slab sides. We contoured the sides. The only things that we wound up retaining of the original was the location of the headlights and the wheel well openings, but not shape. And we wound up, the only part of the whole thing that we didn't change was a little area right here above the windshield, about 2 inches fore and aft, and about 8 inches wide. There was some of the original plaster there. Everything else was changed, recontoured. So we came up with this rather innovative, we thought, version of a MG-sized car, 94-inch wheelbase, 48-inch track, and we created this back end, which was unique at that time, and copied much later by General Motors on the Corvette, 6 or 8 years later.
You're referring to this edge that comes around here?
All our bodies were made as one-piece shells, and then we cut openings other manufacturers would have separate molds for a hood, deck, and doors, and which was a good evolution of the process. Victress was one of the earliest companies making fiberglass bodies, and one of the largest, and so some of our designs and processes were developed very early on. Other manufacturers were able to capitalize on what we had done and make improvements. So, for example, was right here at the sharp belt line, and say the tail end up here. So we had a tail piece, 2 lower side pieces, and a nose piece. And then everything from here up was one piece, or basically 2 pieces joined by the windshield post area. The person who built this, and incidentally, back in the day, these were not sophisticated do-everything car bodies such as one can buy today. A complete, well-thought-out, well-manufactured body for $35,000 to $50,000 probably. These were components, and they were something that the home builder could modify, do anything he wanted to, because there was no hard and fast rule. In this case, for example, the lower panel here behind the wheel opening has been pulled out, and to fare in with the outside of the tire. Functionally, that's a very good thing, but aesthetically, it's distorting the design. The wraparound angles under and then changes gradually, so when it gets down to the side here, it angles under just slightly, just enough so that there's a break here, leaving a fairly sharp belt line. But the builder of this one distorted this and flared the back out to fare in with the tire, and there's nothing wrong with that. It functionally it's great, but aesthetically, I don't care for it so much. I'm very bad at remembering the exact source of the rear windows or any of the glass, as a matter of fact, though it's well documented. But this is fairly typical, except for the sag here. This should have a little more arch in it. But this is fairly typical of a rear window for a Victress C3. There are a couple of people who made an interesting improvement. Bill Packwood, who built a C3 back in 55, 56, found a rear window that wrapped down and contours down this way and up, and it's very pleasing. The line is almost continues the arch of the side, so it's in here paralleling, and it's very nice. The car is called the Packwood Special, and it's being rebuilt by Bill's younger brother Rodney. The interior of any one of these cars of the 50s was strictly up to the individual owner. The seating arrangement was dependent on whether the floor pan sat on top of the frame rails, or the frame rails were widened, allowing the floor pan to sit at the bottom of the frame rails. In this case, it appears to be on top of the frame rails. The dashboard, the instrument panel, was up to the individual. We did manufacture an instrument panel for the S4, which was also adaptable to the C3. This does not have that. This windshield was strictly the ideas of the builder. And the builder created something that is really, really interesting to me. The steering wheel is hinged. Okay, now there is a unique steering wheel, and this was made to help the driver get in and out, because the large steering wheels in those days, in particular the diameter, made it a little difficult for ingress and egress. This is a tremendously innovative and very interesting solution to the problem. They hinge the steering wheel open, climb in, close it, and latch it. And it appears also to have been done in stainless steel, because even being out here in the weather, the wheel's in beautiful condition. And it's really unique. But I want to start at the back, because that's where it all happens. Okay. Because we wanted to create something that was different and advanced from the Schiess Italia, which was its core, we thought that reversing the backside would be new and different. There was a suggestion of that on a Lancia, but the Lancia came down to the edge, and it was pretty much vertical and not very exciting. And so we started shaping and carving and came up with this wrap under, which really made the back end of this car stand out. And then the crease here, which initially during the development was going to fade out about here, it was suggested by Hugh Jorgensen, who had helped create the Victress S1, that we carry that line all the way through, which we did, and the angle of the undercut, the reverse from the part over, diminished as we came forward until about 8 inches back of the front wheel opening, it disappeared completely. It was just a smooth wrap. Now that is an invitation to the maker to continue that line forward if he wanted to end it in a reverse, which might be a place for an engine vent. Anyway, that was one of the features of the car. These Victress script logos were created by an advertising guy that we hired, did all our ads, and he suggested that as a script logo for the car. So that appeared on our brochures, advertisements in magazines and so on. And then if someone wanted to put a script Victress on, he could copy this one, bug, which has the arch. Someone made this up straight. I don't care for it. I like going with this. And if you wanted to put this on a side panel, you know, somewhere here, it would appear probably above the belt line and angled somewhat like this. Strictly, again, up to the fancy of the individual builder. When we built the first version of this, the C2, was MG sized, and we wanted to retain the 94-inch wheelbase of the Italia, which matched the MG. So our rear wheel opening in the design, the arch stayed below this line, so this line was unbroken going forward. And there was a return lip underneath, just as in the front wheel opening. Now, when we did the larger version, the C3, which was, incidentally, the way we did it was after the mold for the C2 was taken, we sawed the buck down the middle and cranked the frame out 8 inches, tied it all back together with plaster and recontoured it. We cut it right through here and cranked the internal frame out 4 inches, tied it back together, and another 4 inches through the crown of the top. That made the car a 58-inch track approximately. And then, because people had different ideas about wheelbase, anywhere from 97 inches out to 102 or so, and so what we did was close in the back end of the C3 mock-up, and so there was no wheel opening. And that way the owner-builder could create an opening that fitted his wheelbase and track. So it was strictly up to the individual owner. And some of them would come cut way up in here, breaking this line, which I object to. Some of them would very carefully retain that, and which I prefer, and still allow room to remove a tire when it needed changing. Several of our buyers would create an egg crate grill similar to those that were commonly installed by Ferrari. And we actually made a few egg crate grills for customers. We didn't advertise them or try to sell them, but we made several, and it was a lot of work. In the fall of '54, we were working on the car, and we'd done the back end pretty much. We were developing the front end, and my partner Doc came running in from an errand. He'd stopped by the Chevy dealership. The new '55 Chevys were out, and the egg crate grill that Chevrolet came up with was perfect for us. So Doc, he came in, he says, I've got it. It's a 55 Chevy grill, and I'm going to get one as soon as the parts department has one available. And so the egg crate 55 Chevy grill was perfect. So we contoured the front to match the contour of that grill. To fit, you had to chop a little bit off the ends of the grill to fit in an opening of this size, because we wanted to leave room for a light here if somebody wanted to put one in. Anyway, so the 55 Chevy grill was the easy way to go and still come up with something that was aesthetically pleasing. Some people liked no bumpers. Some people wanted to do a wraparound, which they could, you know, a full wrap here. Some people would do a Nerf bar that came out here, just enough to protect the headlight and the lower part of the grill. I like that effect. It looks pretty good here and in the back. Or if you have access to tube bending, you could have a bar that came down here and then wrapped around to protect the corner. So, and you know, have that bent and brackets made and chrome plate it, and you've got a really unique custom bumperette.
Okay, we're back. We're back at the house from Fiberglass Farms. We've still got Merrill here with us, and he is committing a felony. He's opening mail that is not addressed to him, albeit mail that he sent. So when Jeff doesn't open his mail in a timely manner, Merrill comes to town and commits mail felonies. So we're going to see what Merrill sent Jeff. It's going to be pretty neat.
It's been so long I forgot. Actually, these will be C3 drawings.
We have a very lively orange audience member here, Pumpkin. There's Pumpkin. She's very excited to see what's in here as well.
Oh. Here we are. Okay, and the message says, Jeff, the copy machine lost a 1/4 inch, 1 inch full scale at about the rear axle, and I didn't identify it until after I had colored the mannequin figures and smoothed the body contour and corrected the rear wheel area. The printing area did not affect anything in the cockpit. So I had forgotten that.
Well, it's good you wrote a note there.
Now this drawing is a blow-up of the drawing of the C3 that I did for the Victress brochure and was reduced for the brochure. So this drawing has gone through some gyrations, but it's pretty accurate, and its intent was for anybody who wanted to build a coupe and have it fit a variety of sizes of human being. So okay, this says, Jeff, keep this uncolored copy as a master for additional copies. Also, it does not have the juggle in the other copies. So anyway,
So give us a rundown here, Merrill.
What's that?
Give us a rundown here of what we're looking at with each of the different sections.
Okay. Well, can I get around on? Well, maybe not. Doesn't matter. Okay. My intent was to provide information to anybody who building a C3 coupe and wanting to have it fit a pretty good variety of sizes. So many people, particularly shorter people, build a car to fit themselves, and tall people then can't get into them. So I am going to come around here. We have here a mannequin drawing that I did using a set of mannequins that were developed by Ken Kennedy at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Ken Kennedy was a famous human factors engineer at that time, and he developed these mannequins using the Air Force data, pilot data. Quarter scale drawing board mannequins by Kenneth W. Kennedy, PhD, USAF male pilots and navigators, 1985 projected. And those, we have the sitting heights for the 95th, 50th, and 5th percentiles and their functional reach. And Ken was kind enough to give me a set of those mannequins, which I still have. Okay, the green guy is the 95th percentile, the pink guy 50th, and the blue guy 5th percentile. And you'll notice that when I laid these mannequins out, these mannequins are fully adjustable, and when I laid them out, I kept the eye line of sight the same for all three. And you'll also notice that I left a little head clearance here because the top of the coupe here is at the center line, and the offset for the two passengers would require some reduction in clearance. So the little pencil line there is the top of the driver's head at the center line. Okay. Anyway, the three positions are adjusted because the pedals would not be adjustable. So all three of the mannequins are set up at a braking position here. Now, if someone were clever enough to have the pedal assembly adjustable, which I have seen, that would really be useful. In that case, a larger person could push the pedals forward and a short person bring the assembly back. But anyway, this is a typical steering wheel position here, and the three mannequins all have their hands on the wheel.
And what does this assume for chassis as far as seat placement on the rails, between the rails, or does that not take that into account?
It doesn't matter. What this drawing is doing is establishing the requirement for the occupant, and so many people establish the interior space based on the chassis that they select, and unfortunately some people think it's really cool to make the body as low as they possibly can, not bothering to consider the future occupant. Now here's the theoretical position, or the ideal position of a driver's head. The idea being, of course, that he has a maximum field of view from the cockpit.
And then our overhead view of the car is just to give good dimensional information, or does this also tie into placement inside?
Well, it's dimensional information, and it's positioned exactly relative to the side view.
Ah, I see. Hey, you didn't draw your favorite window in the back there.
No, I didn't, because that hadn't been done yet.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, that's right. You adapted this from the brochure, so.
Yeah.
Besides the rear window on the Packwood Special, were there other things that you had seen done with coupes that you really liked that you might not have given consideration to before?
No, from that point on, well, I'll take that back. We did our doors with the back end of the opening vertical. I had always subsequently considered the idea of sloping it back, a little forward perhaps at the front, and moving the top of the opening somewhat to the rear, sloping it to give the occupant a little more comfortable space to get in and out. The back of the door would of course slope more or less parallel to the back of the seat. So that's something we never did. I always considered it it might be worth trying to do.
And what kind of slope? Like maybe like 10 degrees or a little bit more extreme?
Just, well, it would be probably limited to some degree by the window, the position of the seat, just anything to make it a little easier to get in and out. And also some might think that the sloping back was more pleasing design line.
Go ahead.
Okay, the drawing shows the C3 was supplied with a closed quarter panel. In other words, there was no wheel well opening here. And what I drew in was based on I think about 100-inch wheelbase. The heavy line, and then the light lines are 98 and 102. Obviously, if someone wanted to move the rear wheel opening farther back, the body of the car gets narrower and narrower, and so you'd wind up with the wheel sticking out.
So are the radiuses, or the radii that we're seeing shown here, kind of what you're looking for ideally, as far as the way this curves in, the angle of this curve, or is this kind of just for illustration purposes?
It's illustration. It's whatever. That's what I liked. Now another thing, frequently people cut the wheel well opening above the design line here, which I think is objectionable. It breaks up the line. But sometimes it's necessary to, if you have larger tires, which everybody drives, in 2023, and you'd have to be able to get the tire on and off the wheel.
So the body line, if it didn't fade out up here, looks like it continues almost
Not
in the
quite.
same plane.
No, the wheel opening is a little above the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, if you were to radius this just to the base of the line,
You could do that.
it would almost be a more visual match. But I wasn't sure if this was above, at, or below the belt line.
Yeah. And if you kept the wheel opening an inch below the line, that would work. I've penciled in what would be a good floor location, and here, and a suggested frame using 2 by 3 inch box frame, square rectangular tubing, so the body would not cover the frame completely.
Oh, that's interesting. So you'd actually see the frame.
Well, if you lay down in the gutter, you could.
Yeah.